What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Recovery Unplugged. I'm John Spalding from G1NBC. We have our host extraordinaire, Amy McCorkle, writer, director, award-winning in all of those tags that you can give her, and she's conducting today's interview. And so I will let you introduce JoAnn.
Okay. This is okay. Oh, where's it at? Okay. Tonight we have a very special guest, a highly requested and in-demand screenwriter. JoAnn Hess has done everything from working with Fortune 500 companies to wife and mother, all the while studying, honing, and applying her craft in screenwriting. JoAnn, your journey from high-powered career woman to thriving creator has been an interesting one.
Yes.
And why don't you tell us how you went from Fortune 500 career woman to screenwriter?
Yeah, well, I went to college, did the college thing, did the right brain thing. I got schmutz. I got a little bit of schmutz, and I have an economics degree, and I went and got my MBA, my master's, and I worked for a corporate Fortune 500 company in Akron, Ohio. I was actually an international credit manager for a while, and
Wow.
yeah, it was really fascinating. And I got to travel on business and to Europe several times, and it was a lot of fun. And then my husband and we decided to have children, and we said, well, either I could keep my corporate career and have other people raise our children, or we could take a step back and stay at home and raise our children ourselves. And that was really wonderful. But being the woman that I am, I just couldn't just stay home and just raise kids. I had to do something. And I was always a creative person. I was always a writer, from high school, as a young kid. I always wrote my little stories and everything. And that was really kind of my big dream, is to become a writer. So I said, what an opportunity this is to, while I'm at home, take that time to study and get an education about writing and hone my skills. And it really got started from a friend of mine who called me up one day, and she said, I've got this screenplay this agent wants, would you give it a read? And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about screenwriting, but yeah, I'll read it. And it was really great. Very funny. She's a very funny lady. And I said, well, what's this all about? I said, this is great. Send it. And I said, what's this all about? And she said, oh, I think I'm going to do this television series. This agent, really likes it. And I figured I'd just get some bunch of friends together and we'd all write it together. And so I'm looking for people to write it. And I said, okay, I'll write it with you. And she's like, okay. You're not even going to ask me for a writing sample or anything. She goes, no, come on in. So we spent about a year writing 5 episodes, not having a clue what we were doing. I mean, zero clue. We're writing this thing. The formatting was horrible. I mean, the and everything. But I mean, I would give it to people, and they're like, "Oh, what is this? I can't even read it. It's in the formatting was so bad." And the agent loved it, and I got this close to Lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got really close, except unfortunately, she did the one thing that writers should never, ever, ever do, and she would not take notes. So when Lifetime came back and said, we like this, but we want this, these change and this change and this change, and they're like, well, they don't understand my writing, the typical response.
Yes.
The typical defensive, you didn't read it, you don't understand it, this is coming from a really deep emotional place. And
yeah.
And I'm saying, guys, we're this close to Lifetime. Maybe we should listen and make some changes.
Yeah.
But nobody but me would do it. So the agent dropped us immediately, and it was kind of dead in the water. But that was my taste of screenwriting, which was so different from novel writing, because it really got into the characters and the dialogue and you didn't have to be so verbose. You really could focus, and it was, of course, a lot shorter in length. And so I decided, hey, maybe I'll check this out. So I took some classes and ended up even getting my master's certification in screenwriting. And from there, got into it with both feet and never stopped.
We met at Indie Gathering where you had several screenplays placing and winning. Why not tell us a little bit about, well, how you went from finished screenplay to being selected for fellowships and attaching producers?
Yeah, I say this a lot. When you're doing screenwriting, you really have to make sure that you're honing your skills and really learning and always improving, never being satisfied with one draft, always moving forward and finding every little bit of improvement that you possibly can in elevating a script. And the master screenwriting program that I went through was really great. It was an intensive class. It was about a year and a half where we went through that process of taking a script and elevating it by going through dialogue, going through settings, going through action and from the outline right to the finished polished product, and then taking those skills and doing it from scratch, including interest techniques and all kinds of little nit things that professionals really do. And so in a year and a half later, from really honing those skills, I came up with Grandfella. I'd written some stuff before that did very well, but Grandfella was my my breakout script. But in that meantime, it was about 2014. Another screenwriter had somebody I knew, one of those Facebook groups that we all belong to, had said, "Look, I'm looking for a writer that has a background in either economics or history." And
Oh, ding, 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 ding.
yeah, I said, okay, wow, now we're going back to corporate life, right? Because my degree's in economics, I have an MBA, and I said, okay, yeah, I have it. What do you want? And that was the person who said, okay, give me a writing sample. And next thing I know, they're hiring me as a co-writer for a script for a producer in England.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those things where you just say, I'm just starting out. I just finished this master's class. Am I good enough? Right? Am I really good enough to go for this job? And I'm going to tell you, never hesitate. Go for it. Because when opportunity knocks, it may not knock again. You just got to go for it. Because she could have read my stuff and said, no, we're going to look for other people. But it ended up doing well. I did write the gig. It didn't get anywhere. It's still kind of on one of those back burners. It's still out there, a back burners, and the producer is trying to do it. But from that gig, okay, the producer liked my writing so much, he gave me another script to write, and that script is going to be filmed in September.
Wow.
From that, he gave me Devil's Dandruff to write. That script still hasn't been produced yet, but Tom Delmar was attached. He was an assistant director on Guy Ritchie's Snatch. He liked the writing so much that he's brought me in on this other project that we can't talk about. But, and then also from that script, another producer in England contacted me, loved the script, so she hired me to write a TV series, which right now we're pitching and promoting, and have already won 3 awards for. So, wow. I hope I answered your question, but that's really, when you never know what that beginning gig is going to get you, and that's what it was. It was taking the lessons, having the confidence, taking that first gig, and from there blossoming into getting other producers who are now calling me. I mean, it's something when you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you get this message, must talk to you urgent, and you're like, oh my god.
You're like, am I in trouble?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that.
It wasn't. Okay.
No, yeah.
Can you tell us what your current projects are? You've already done some of that. And tell us what they're about and what your process was in writing them.
Okay. Well, let me talk about Devil's Dander, because that is a big project that we're really trying to get off the ground. It's an amazing project. It's one of those projects that, has been kind of in development hell. It gets financing, it loses financing, it gets more fun. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It is one A-list actor short of being produced, But the thing when that project came to me, the producer, actually, it's kind of based on his life. He wrote a series of books, and this script is based on the first book, which is called there's no room for jugglers in my circus. That's it. And it's a British saying, so that's why, if you don't understand what that means. But anyway, it's about, it's gangsters back in the 80s. It's about gangsters. So I'll just say that.
Okay.
And, but about British gangsters. Okay. In England.
Okay.
All right. And what was interesting is, like, okay, now I've got a book, so I have to adapt this book, and I have to adapt it in a way also because he wrote 4 books, and he wants it to go on for total of 4 movies. So how do I take this book and create a story out of it? Because it really was more like a bunch of vignettes, isolated events in his life. There was no overreaching arc, and there was no arc that connected everything and then the story to follow through. So I actually had to go through and create that. And the process was interesting because at first he tells me, and this is working with producers, because sometimes producers don't exactly know what they want. Okay? So it can be a little frustrating, and this is why I always insist on a producer accepting the outline before I start writing it, because you don't want to write the entire 120, 110, 100-page script for them to come back and say, nah, it's not what I wanted. You have to now rewrite it, right? So I always start at the outline level and make sure that they approve that. So the first outline came through, he said, I want it bigger than the book. I don't want just the book. I want it bigger. So I created this whole story. And he said, well, no, that's not right, because you're missing all these pieces of the book. And I said, well, you told me to make it bigger. And he goes, well, I want the book. I want the book in the movie. So then I did a second outline that was the book, right? And he says, no, I want it bigger than the book. I said, God, swear to God, this is it. And I'm, getting frustrated. So finally I had to take my outline apart, and I had it all over my floor. I'm going, what I'm missing is I'm missing that over arc. I'm missing that one piece that's really going to bring it all together. And once I figured that out, I did the outline again, and third time was a charm. He's like, yes, this was it. So it's hard getting into their head and figuring out what they want. So that was quite a challenge in working with, again, IP, making IP into the script that the producer actually wanted when he wasn't really articulating exactly. And it was so much, Amy, I can't even tell you. When I was going through this and I wasn't getting it right, he kept throwing all these YouTube videos at me, like this, and I get like Phil Collins in some movie, and then I get I'm like, what? When did Phil Collins come into a gangster film? So you can imagine an American female now writing a British gangster movie. But that gig got me attention from a producer in Australia, and two more directors in England. So because they couldn't believe that a female would write, the script. So it was that was probably the most worth it. I'm still waiting for that to get made so I can get paid. But in the long run, it's given me so much more work that it was worth doing, whether it gets made or I hope it gets made because it's a really great script. But because we have Peter Field attached to direct that, and Peter Field, if you don't know who he is, was cinematographer on the James Bond movie.
Which one?
All of them. Quantum of Solace.
Not all of them. Roger Deakins was Scott.
No, a lot of the later ones. The later ones with Daniel Craig. The ones with Daniel Craig. So how about that 6 degrees of separation, right? If we can get that made, we'll have Peter Field. It would be connected somehow to James Bond.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
your writing process.
My writing process. Okay. It's evolved tremendously. I am an absolute advocate for the outline, and a lot of people aren't, but I'm going to tell you that the outline has saved me hours and hours and hours of work, because you can figure out any mistakes, any plot holes. You can see the entire movie in a very short amount of paper. So this is especially important when I wrote 0 Days. 0 Days, a thriller I wrote, and I really pieced through it very technically. So it's very technical because, there are setups and payoffs, and you have to make sure that it really flows through and all the characters are doing the right thing, so you have the big payoff. I found, you write it scene by scene, and you go I'm very linear in my thinking. Unless I'm stuck, and then I won't stay stuck, I'll move on, I'll move forward. Never just sit there and just agonize over a scene. Just keep moving forward so that you can get it all done. But I like to start with, first of all, my concept. This concept is king, right?
Right.
And once I have the concept locked down and my log line makes sense to me, and it's got my twist, and it really sparks, and it's really high concept. From there, I move into my characters, and I start developing who are my characters in this. Because once I know their traits and I know how they're going to act and react to things, then I can move on to story, because I already have the characters in my head, so they're already talking to me. Right? Here, if you don't do the characters, nobody's talking and nobody's acting and nobody's moving. So it's hard to get story down. And from there, then I do my outline. And then I'm meticulous at going through that outline and making sure this plot point is hit and this plot point is hit and this, because that's where you fix it. And then when that's done, writing is such a breeze, because you've already got it detailed by scene, by scene, by scene. And you don't get stuck because you've already gone through that process of what comes next, and then what comes next, and what comes next. So I can churn out a script within a month if I have to. Okay. So and then you're not done. Once you have that first draft, you celebrate for a day or two, and then you delve right back in it. And I'll go through, and first I'll look at structure. Is my structure correct? Then I'll look at plot. Is my plot correct? Am I missing any pieces? Is there a plot hole that I missed the first time? I'll go through and do a character check. Are my characters acting the way they're supposed to? Because if every character is acting the same way, it's bland, right? Each character, right. They have their own traits. Do they have the flight or fight? What's their subtext? Do they hide things? Are they forthright in speaking? Are they fighters? Are they, hider? Yeah. All that has to come through in the script individually, each one. I'll do a dialogue pass. And then when I'm happy with everything, then I do the grammar and the polish pass.
Okay.
So I do quite a few passes before I consider it finished. And then at that point, then I'll have somebody read it. And then they'll tell me what's wrong with it.
Okay, you are also a judge for Annabelle Monroe's Most Important Films. Tell us what the festival is about and how you came to be involved in it.
The festival, Annabelle, the festival is about seeking scripts and films that have a important message, that deal with either a social issue or something that speaks to a people or an incident or something that has a world or social, a major impact on society or the world at large. Okay, and in a way that it's not in your face. You know, we want something that is going to speak on a topic that is important for audiences to engage and think about, right? And
Right.
and really consider what their position is on the subject matter, and maybe even if there are things that can be done, you know, in regards to that. So we want it storytelling, of course, first, but it's really storytelling with a major theme.
Okay.
Okay. And how I got basically Annabelle just, hey, you want to be a judge? She's real sweet. She was like, I have this important, it's my first year and I want to do this right. And actually she said Dell recommended that you might do it, which thank you, Dell. That was just amazing that you would recommend me. And so how can I say no then, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, here's the corner. So it was quite an honor for her to ask me to do that. And really appreciate it because it is the first year. And I really believe that we can deal with, we can entertain and teach at the same time without it being in your face teaching. I mean, we really can, like something like 3 Billboards, that to me is, about a woman, if you haven't seen it, definitely see it, needing to find justice for her daughter, and that's when others won't listen or others won't pay attention. I mean, that's a very strong message. And, society being what it is today, I think we all can be advocates for ourselves and in our society and what, we want to be. You want to be the change that you want to see, right? So it's important to talk about these subjects and get them out there. So it's been very interesting. I've read quite a few interesting, I think a few miss the message, but it's can be tough because we're not just looking for any kind of script. We're really looking for something pretty special. So it's been real interesting reading everybody's work. People have some amazing imaginations and amazing creativity. So and a few of them, really touched me and a little tear, a little cry a little bit. So, and if you make me cry on the paper, man, that's aces. So yeah, hopefully she's happy with what we come up with. But really, thanks to everyone who have participated in it. It's a wonderful contest.
I often call you a rock star because I believe you're about to break through to the mainstream. With the current falling out between the WGA and the ATA, where do you think that leaves people like you who who are like on the verge of breaking through. They just need a push.
Actually, it's funny because I was just talking about this the other day. I was never, huge a union person, but I've been very impressed with this whole situation because it really is unfair. And it is especially unfair to those who are trying to break in because it's hard enough getting through gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are only getting worse. Um, so what's been amazing is watching how the guild has reacted to this and has set up hashtags and forums to help those who are just starting out to get gigs. Now, these, of course, are for members. And when we're not people, I'm not a member yet, so I can't take advantage of that. So it never was, something that I could, it really stymied me because, when you work in indie, I mean, indie is not going to pay you WGA
Right.
rates. So when you're just starting out, you really are at a disadvantage to go through WGA because that can price you out because you can only do WGA, projects, and because you have to charge those kind of rates. And my opinion is always, I'll wait till I get that gig that forces me, to join. And yay when that happens, because then I'll be there. But for those of us who are still on the kind of the ground floor, you have to get produced. So sometimes, you have to go with the lower gigs, the gigs that don't pay as much, or, deferred. I mean, I still have some deferred stuff out there because I'm just trying to get to the point where I get to that next level, which is at a produced level, and then move. And then you get a reputation, you get a name for yourself, getting the IMDb credits, because I just don't see how WGA is going to help anyone who's just starting out. I really don't. Now, with what's going on with the ATA in the long run, I think that's better for writers because agents are supposed to be working for their clients. That's the law. They become too much involved with the process and fees and pitting one client against another to maximize their profits, and I don't think that's right. So I'm glad that this happened. I think it's the correct thing to happen, and so it will only benefit us at the lower echelons in the future. We'll
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to pivot to what we do on this show and talk frankly about mental illness, stigma, and what we can do to change that. Has your life at any time been touched by mental illness, either personally or as a caregiver?
Well, my mother-in-law currently is definitely, going through that stage where she's losing a lot of her memory. So it's challenging, when she gets there, when she comes over for dinner, or she has you, and she asks the same question over and over again. She insists. The neighbor the other day was just moved in. They had been there for like 5 years. It's just she just long-term memory is intact, but the short-term memory is definitely going. So we've had to alter a few things. We can't let her drive at night. Luckily, she lives in a complex where I know the manager, so I have people keep an eye on her. She's okay in her place, but we had an incident where 3 o'clock in the morning the police show up. Your mother drove to like an hour south of Columbus, and she thought she was going to Hempstead, New York, and she just got in the car and started driving and just kept going until she ran out of gas, literally.
Wow.
Yeah. So, then that was the big wake up call. And that was when we put the tracker on the car and she can't drive at night. And, we have to put restrictions on her and had to take the finances. I mean, we find out how much money that she was just giving to people because she couldn't remember. You know how people call up fire department, can we have $15? And then they'd call 2 days later, can we have another $15?
Yeah.
Remember? So $200 a month is just flying out of her account. So yeah, we've had to make some adjustments and take over some things. And she resisted at first, but now I think we've at least gotten to the point where she knows she's just not remembering. So, and she's having to trust. It's trust issues, she's been able to now just say, okay, I trust you. Everything's taken care of. I'm not going to worry about it. And so we just be patient when she asks the question 15 times and just appreciate that she's still here,
Yeah. As a mother, how do you handle the topic of mental illness with your children?
This is a great thing. When my kids were small, we're lucky in our school system that we had a preschool program that was for kids with special needs. Now, whether it was mental or physical, okay, we had some autistic children, we had children who had wheelchairs, who had different issues. And what they would do is they would you could ask to be you could sign up to be a peer student, okay? But you had to get interviewed, and you had to get, and the children were really looked at very closely by the school psychiatrist and the head teachers with special needs and everything. So the children were talked to, and both of my younger two, and my older one wasn't in it because I didn't know about it. Both of my younger two were peer students. So it was a wonderful program. First of all, they got a preschool education, but also they learned that other children, even though they have some issues, either physical or mental, that they're still kids, and they could empathize. And so at a very young age, they were exposed to that. So it's nothing to them about, if somebody's different for some reason or somebody acts a little strange. You could just say, oh, that's like Tommy. Remember Tommy? And oh yeah, they would remember. I'm like, okay, it's just a kid. He just has an issue, and he would think nothing of it. And it was basically what is normal. I mean, there was a new definition of normal. Okay, that's why they called them peer students, because it wasn't the other kids that were labeled. Peer students were labeled. They would come in and they would do things, because they didn't have any issues, so the other students could emulate them and understand, this is how I put a cup away. This is how I put the toys away. This is how I write my letters on a piece of paper. And so it wasn't the teachers coming down and saying, no, write your A's like this, write your B's. It was student to student, and it was always so precious because they spoke the same language. They were kids, and by would learn by just seeing how the other students would act. And it was a very symbiotic relationship between the two. My kids were learning, that not every child is like them, which was a wonderful thing. And then they were also learning how, through their activity, how to do things, how to physically do things, or how to mentally do things. So it was a wonderful program. And going through that, my kids have always had a very empathetic outlook towards people of all types.
What do you think could be done in schools to better handle the rise of mental illness experienced by students?
Yeah, you see, it's always about money, and sometimes it's hard when certain school districts don't have the finances. I'm very fortunate, in our area that we have the IP programs that are in place, for learning disabled and to bring them through. They still go through with their school group so that they're not labeled, you know, but yet they get that extra help that they need, they that extra learning that may need in particular subjects, or because they may be bipolar, and they have certain issues during the school day and need to be taken out and have their calming time or whatever, or taken to other special rooms to do more physical activity. We were very fortunate that we had the students and the money and to do that. I think that's really, really important if schools can have spend that kind of money. I know learning, but everybody should have an opportunity to learn. So it's not just and people learn in different ways. Okay, so not everybody can sit there at their desk and just learn from a chalkboard. So schools may have to have different classrooms depending on learning types. I know Montessori does this, but I know they started to do this in some of the schools, is to exchange so that kids who are learning at different levels than other children, they can get the extra help, but the other children who are already there aren't bored and they can move on. So it's kind of like almost a three-ring circus. You have these classrooms that blend together so that the kids who are falling behind get the extra help, but the kids who can move on do so they're not bored, but at the same time they're still together in the same classroom, so nobody's stigmatized.
Okay. Okay. Have you experienced have you had experience with mental illness in the film industry? And if you have, how was it handled?
Crazy producers who don't know what they want. No, I'm being the little facetious. I have not personally had that situation come about. I mean, I'm trying to think that anyone in the film industry. Ooh. Oh. No, no, I haven't. I mean, um, I haven't, but I haven't really been on a set, so it might be different for me because all I've really worked with is producers long distance, and otherwise I tend to be in my cave writing, unfortunately. Um, I guess maybe gone to festivals where every once in a while there'll be somebody there who has some difficulties, but on a film set I have enough experience in that.
Okay. Finally, let's have a little fun. If your
Oh
life
boy.
if your life was a movie, what would the title be?
She did it anyway.
uh, if you could cast anyone in the cinematic world to play you, who would it be?
To play me, okay, it would have to be Sandra Bullock.
Okay.
I love Sandra Bullock. She's funny, smart. She's got it all together, man. I love that actress. And for once in my life I can have straight black hair.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh boy, my favorite movie of time is Chinatown. Okay, I think that's back when films really were made that were cinematographic, that had great storytelling, and weren't just all CGI and chase scenes, and it really was a cerebral film. It was had a little bit of the noir in it, which I always liked. I like those old, 1940 films. Um, and Nicholson and Dunaway were phenomenal, and of course the plot twist. And if you haven't seen it, go see it because it's a phenomenal film. The plot twist was shocking when it came out. I mean, it was a real shock. So, and no one ever saw it coming. And that's the kind of film that I just love. That's what I want to make. I want to take you on this journey and take you and you just feel as though you know where it's going. And I'm leading you along and you're coming along for the ride, and then boom, I'm just going to throw this at you and go, you're going to just sit there and go, whoa, I did not see that coming. That, to me, if I had an audience say that to me, then that would be, I've done my job. That's the kind of writer I want to be. So that's why I love China.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any three people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
Well, first, I've always been a fan of Thomas Jefferson. I thought his writing is so brilliant, and being one of the founding fathers of our country, I would just love to pick his brain, going, how did you foresee so many things? I mean, considering we have a constitution, we're one of the youngest countries in the world, but the oldest constitution in the world, with only 40-something changes. I mean, that's just phenomenal. So I always wanted to pick his brain, and that was also the era when people really would debate things, and people would listen to each other, and it was always a matter of words that people would stand by what their position was, and they would really have to communicate it in bold, eloquent language. That is so lost nowadays. Now it's just pointing fingers and calling people names, which is a shame. So Thomas Jefferson, I'd like at the table. Number two, in film, I would love Joss Whedon's got to be there. He's my favorite, absolutely favorite director, writer. I think he writes characters and dialogue that is just brilliant. I would love to emulate a lot of what he does. I think he builds stories together, and for God knows how Firefly never made it past the first season. I'll never know. He's just an amazing writer, and I also love Zoe was one of my favorite characters that he wrote. He writes very strong female characters, and so I'm very impressed with him. So he'd have to be at the table. And third, I guess I would say Katharine Hepburn, because she was always one of the most. She was a woman before her time as an actress. She was amazing. She played very strong female characters. She was effortless in her acting, and very strong opinion, and very sure of herself. And I would love to just sit and talk to her and pick her brain.
And lastly, for all the aspiring screenwriters there wanting to be where you're at, what advice would you give them?
My advice I give to everyone is always be your own advocate. Do not sit on your laurels and wait for that phone to ring, because it won't. It will not. You need, when opportunity presents itself, you need to go with both feet forward and don't look back. You never know where it's going to lead you, but you always, always have to move forward. There are no setbacks. I don't care what kind of bad coverage you get. I don't care that you didn't win that prize. That just means you dust yourself off, you do a rewrite, and you start again. You make the phone calls, and you send out the query letters, and you send out to another another competition, and you talk to people at festivals. You get out of your cave and go meet people, and just keep doing whatever you can to move that one step further, that career one step further. No one is going to help you along the way.
Nobody's going to care about your career more than you. I
Exactly.
totally agree.
Exactly.
Once I shifted the way I looked at things, around 2011, that's when I got my first book contracts, and it it really changed things. Just, I just started writing and sending query letters. I'm better, actually. My query letters have always been better. It took a while for my craft to on the books and the scripts to meet my craft on the pitch and the query letters. People say, "Oh, I hate writing query letters." Too bad. It's part of the business.
Yeah, you really don't have a lot of. I know, and I hate pitching. That's why I love getting writing assignments because I don't have to pitch. I am not a pitching. I hate pitching. But the thing is that if you're not passionate about you, how can you expect anyone else to be passionate about you? Right?
Right.
If you don't speak of yourself and going, oh my God, I sit down and I write the script and just trying to figure out where this character is going to go. It's so amazing to me and I just love doing it. People get caught up in that enthusiasm. And all of a sudden, they're nodding their head and they're saying, yes, I get it. I get you. And I want to know you. And can I have your card? And you never know where that connection is going to lead. So always be your own advocate. Always. And don't let anybody, there are so many naysayers out there. Okay, people who are going to tell you can't write. People are going to tell you you're no good in this business. People who are going to tell you that and that you don't have any talent. If you've got the passion and you've got the will to sit there and hone your craft and be skilled and do what it takes to get there, trust me, you are ahead of 95%, 98% of most of the people who are just writing and expect that one script to be the next Star Wars. It's just not going to happen.
No, I had people tell me as recently as last year, as long as at ICFF, as long as you insist on wanting to direct Letters to Daniel, it will never get made. We're now less than 8 weeks out from filming it. So, I mean,
proof right there. Proof.
Right.
You're looking at the face of proof. And you call me a rock star.
Yeah, no, you are a rock star. Okay, John, are you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there more to that question?
Yeah. Are you going to show your face?
Oh, all right. What a great interview. That was, it was really good. Like, so usually we do a little bit of an intro and we show the Letters to Daniel trailer and stuff like that. But Amy just kind of introduced you and started the interview, and so I just turned off my camera, and you guys went almost as long as Dell's interview, so good job.
Holy Toledo! Wait, I have to beat him. Is there another question?
Yeah, right. So, but I mean, your responses were spot on. I think you gave some great advice. Also, gave some good personal experiences. Pleasure to listen and be in on the background. Did get couple likes and some stuff in there online, and then good job. The something's up with my Zoom window. It's showing my color.
I know you're
off.
glowing.
I think Zoom's getting mixed up because I do a Browns video, so it's like it's picking up the black on my shirt and like.
I see the Browns backdrop.
Can you see it? I took the green screen off, so I don't understand, but whatever. Who knows what's going on the internet these days? But JoAnn, it was a pleasure to listen to your interview and meet you, here,
Yeah, same
virtually.
here. Oh, it was a blast. It was a blast. Thank you so much for letting me come on and just talk about me. That's always so much fun.
It is, isn't it?
It is. So
we're gonna leave on the Letters to Daniel trailer,
Okay.
you guys, and then we'll go to the outro music. What's next week look like?
Katrina Michio,
oh,
first woman of AOF.
The first woman of AOF. So we've already had the Queen on, and now we're having the first woman.
Yes.
yeah.
Cool. What is Katrina's last name again?
Michio.
Michio. All right, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning
for
in.
having me.
Yep.
Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.
Take care.
All right, everyone, here is the trailer for Letters to Daniel, and then we will see you next Monday.
Dear Daniel, life did not always look like this. They say life happens when you're busy making other plans. For me, it was bipolar disorder. It crept in and systematically, quickly dissembled my ability to function in society and rendered me scared, lost, and lonely. I lost the ability to focus, and the simplest of tasks became too overwhelming. Even though it felt like I had been abandoned, I still had one person in my corner out there on the front lines with me. Missy Goodman. Writing partner, best friend, soul sister, caregiver. This disease will bury you if it goes untreated. But with the help of medication, therapy, and the support of an amazing caregiver, I've gone on to be in a one-day-at-a-time recovery and have a career in the arts. This is the story of how me and Missy got there together. This is Letters to Daniel.